You know, when you're listening to all the politicians telling you who you should vote for and which box you should tick, and if you do this, something else will happen. There's constantly the use of fear. You know, they kind of terrorize you a little bit into believing that if you tick this box, something very, very bad will happen unless you tick their box. And I would encourage anybody to vote with hope, not fear. You know, this is what it's about. It's about truth. Vote with truth and hope, not fear.
I'm delighted that Tina is taking the fight directly to George Osborne. I think she's going to make a fantastic candidate for Tatton, and I think that George is going to have his work cut out for him when he tries to explain why he is pursuing an austerity agenda that is not only socially destructive but is also economically counterproductive.
I'm very excited that Tina's standing for the Green Party against George Osborne. I think it's going to be a fascinating campaign, and on issues ranging from fracking to democracy to the failed policy austerity, I think she's going to do a spectacularly good job of putting the green case, putting the anti-austerity case.
We frequently hear how are the Green Party going to pay for this? This is all well and good that you've got to give everybody everything, but you can't cover the cost. Well, we can cover the cost, because when you think back, when the banks ran out of money and really needed a bailout, suddenly we could find it. We could find trillions for a bank bailout. When there's a humanitarian crisis, we can find money for that, and that's important that we do. So let's call ourselves the humanitarian crisis. Let's call our healthcare, our education, our railways, our infrastructure the humanitarian crisis. And let's fix ourselves. It's very important that we start working out that it's not how much money we have, it's how we use it. And when you think about the fact that the top 1%, we would levy a wealth tax of just 2% on them, just 2%. And this is for people worth over £3 million. So we're not going to touch the people who are finding it hardest to survive. We're not even going to touch the middle classes. Going up to the top end, tax the 1%, introduce a Robin Hood tax that would put a tiny fraction of a percentage on each of the financial deals that were done in what they call casino banking, not regular everyday banking. Casino banking is the risk-taking transactions between banks, where it's a very fast transaction and lots of them happen very, very quickly. And if you put the tiniest percentage tax onto that, then we take a huge amount of money. For small businesses, we want to make it possible to employ more staff or to pay your staff better wages. And so we're going to lower the employer's national insurance contribution from 13.8% down to 8%. We're also going to put a 30% tax, which is going up 10% on corporations. So corporation tax will go up 10% to 30%. Because this levels the playing field a little bit for the smaller businesses to compete against the corporates, many of whom are already banking offshore. We'd also clamp down on that. Do you know, every year between 70 and 120 billion is lost in tax evasion and tax avoidance. So when we are told you can't pay for any of this, oh yes we can. We need to reprioritise how we pay for things and where that money comes from. At the moment, it's coming from the hardest hit. I'd like to say that looking at the behaviour of the people inside this building, I can't imagine that having their skills would benefit me at all in the type of democracy I want. I think the type of skills you have as a mother, a grandmother, a campaigner, an activist, an active member of your community, those are the skills I want to see in Parliament. I don't want to see some man who knows how to get a favour from a lobbyist or give a favour to a lobbyist. I don't want to see men who can feather their own nests so that you go through the revolving door of industry and government and work out your favours that way and look at your future. So when you go into politics, you are taking a huge responsibility, and it strikes me that they don't view it the way we do. That, they come up through an education system and particular schools to expect to be politicians, rather than to feel it's a privilege and an honour to serve your community. So I'm going to be doing everything in my power to ensure that a democracy means a democracy, and that you don't just tick a box every 5 years, but that it's an interactive, participatory democracy where people have their say. The first hustings we did was with the Country Landowners Association in a mansion with a lawn and everything. It was amazing. Beautiful place, surrounded by polo fields. And so we're all on the panel, and HS2 came up as the most serious issue for the landowners. They do not want HS2. So that eliminated Conservative, Labour, Lib Dem out of the game for the rest of the hustings. There was only UKIP and me. But then, fortunately, it came down to fracking. They weren't so keen on either, so that kind of left it down to me. Oh, and also they insist on staying in Europe. It's very important to them, the landowners, because of milk quotas and common agricultural policy. Although we want to revise common agricultural policy, we would retain some of it. So this is what they rely on the Greens for. So in the end, the only person on that panel who fit everything they wanted was a Green Party member. Last night was the debate at the Knutsford Academy, organised by Knutsford Guardian, and then today it was churches together at a church building in Wilmslow. And both occasions George Osborne was at. So this is my first encounter with him, that he seemed to have more control over the events that occurred last night and today. Particularly last night, we'd agreed that we would have filming, and I'd asked Knutsford Guardian, the organisers, is it all right if we film this? And it was public on Twitter that I asked this question, and I asked it as Tina for Tatton, and I got the reply from the Knutsford Guardian, yes, absolutely, we're even thinking of looking at live stream ourselves. When I got to my seat, the editor of the Guardian came to speak to me, and she said, no, we didn't agree this, there is no filming. And I said, yes, you did. I said publicly on Twitter, the Knutsford Guardian said, yes, we could film. I said, so that was your news editor? And she said, well, I didn't know anything about that. I said, but it was agreed. And she said, I said, how come it isn't possible? And then the head of the school came and said, oh, it's because it's school buildings, we don't do filming here. And I said, but it's not being a school, it's a public premises. At the moment, you're just holding a public meeting. And it's normally televised, normally it's recorded. And he said, it was a special request. And I said, who by? He said, I don't think we need to discuss that now. So this morning, when we went to the Wilmslow venue, again, the filmmakers were there because they were already in the area. And I went in and there was a pre-meeting before we went on stage. And so David said, today I'd quite like filming to be allowed. And then Gareth, the Liberal Democrat, said, yes, I'd like that too. And I said, oh yeah, I'd like that too. I'd like filming. And then George was shuffling uncomfortably in the corner and glaring at the organiser. And the organiser said, well, no, it's been arranged now that we've already said we won't have filming. And we said, well, we'd quite like if you change that. We choose filming. Why can't we? And then George went, oh, well, it's been organised now. Let's get on. You can't push any further than that. What more can I do? I can't fight it because otherwise I'll just be kept out of the debate. The filmmaker then said, why is there no freedom of the press here today? At which point the whole audience erupted with applause because no one understood why there was no filming allowed and what possible reason could they have had. There was no reason for it. The being on stage with him, that was fine. I felt he was just another human being like me as much as possible. But I did feel his motivation, his passion, his interest, his investment in this is not what we have with the other candidates. I think a lot of us have worked really hard in this campaign, and I feel like he just knows he's going to walk it. In his head, it's a safe seat. The way our electoral system works with first past the post, to have been in your seat already for 14 years makes it fairly certain. Something pretty drastic has to happen to change that. But what I'm hoping will change that is pretty drastic, is as many people didn't vote as did in Tatton. So let's hope that they actually get up. I think three times in the debates last night and this morning, one of the other candidates went, well, Greens can't win here. Well, why can't Greens win here? Why can't they? I mean, I know our electoral system is skewed, but there is a chance for anybody to win. And I think the point to having, that we need to get across to the voting public is understand that you don't have to vote red or blue to get red or blue. You can vote for a multicoloured parliament. You can vote for a multitude of different opinions and diversity in your politics, in which case, as many Greens as you get on seats in there will have impact and influence the same way. Caroline Lucas is one MP, and the impact she's made has been quite astounding to make sure that room is reminded continuously of Green Party policies and the fact that we care about the whole picture rather than just the economy, that we care about humanity and health and education in ways that they never could in the other parties. I suppose what I would say to the part of the electorate that's in the middle class, the upper middle class, who have houses, who don't have the effects of austerity snapping at their ankles, for those people, I would say if you vote Green, you will assure that austerity won't bite your children at their ankles, because you may be okay. Maybe you sorted your life out and it's good. But can you be assured of the same for your children when they go through university and leave with debt, when they attempt to access NHS care and find that they have to pay for what they're accessing? And for yourselves too. Do you want to have to sell your house in order to pay for your elderly care when you need to go into it, if you do? You know, this is what society relies on. We rely on good education. It nourishes our job market. It raises our calibre. You know, why would we want to charge for that? It benefits everyone. Good healthcare, that benefits everyone. You know, and elder care, we require dignity when we're older, and we should not have to pay for that when we've already paid into the system all our lives. It's been really rewarding going around the various towns and villages in Tatton. Done a lot of farmers markets, artisan markets, all the great places to go. And just meeting people one-on-one has been lovely. And it's been so, well, I suppose surprised in a way, because there's never been a Green Party candidate there. And a lot of people, when I introduced myself and said I was a Green Party candidate, went, oh, that's good. We've never had a Green Party candidate to vote for before. Because if you think about the social profile of the area, it's the sort of area that's always voted Conservative, because they would be very unlikely to vote Labour. Very unlikely to vote UKIP. Liberal Democrats, I suppose, scraped in okay, but certainly not this time. But they've never had a Green Party option. And I think a lot of them, particularly a lot of the women that I met, they're raising children. They understand that the world their children are growing up in may not be as comfortably off perhaps as they are, that they need to protect the NHS for them, that free education will help their children have a better start in life rather than starting with the burden of debt. And so a lot of them were like, oh, good, finally, someone to vote for.